President.
Minority Whip.
Mr. President, today I want to reflect on a 14th anniversary. It's the 14th anniversary of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program known as DACA. After years of congressional inaction, in 2010, I wrote a letter to my former Senate colleague, President Barack Obama, co-signed by my late Republican colleague, Senator Richard Lugar of Indiana, asking President Obama to stop the deportation of dreamers. Who are the dreamers? They're kids who came to the United States with their parents. They were infants, toddlers, young boys and girls, maybe even teenagers, but they didn't make the family decision. They got in the car and headed north. They grew up in the United States, never knowing that they were undocumented, didn't have the proper legal identification. When everybody stood up in the classroom and pledged allegiance to that flag, they joined in. That was their flag for their country and their future. And somehow, a little later in life, around their teenage, adolescent years, one of their parents sat down and said, "I've got to tell you the grim reality. You are not legally in the United States. You're undocumented. No matter how hard you studied, how many times you pledged allegiance to that flag, you don't legally belong here." As a consequence, I introduced a bill called the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act basically said, if you keep your nose clean, if you work hard, if you pursue the path the right way, now that you're here, we're not going to hold it against you that you were sitting in the back seat when your mom and dad drove up here. We're going to give you a chance for your future to prove that you're of value to the United States. That was the DREAM Act. I tried to pass it on the floor of the Senate many times. Often I would get a majority vote, but the requirement on the floor would be 60 votes. And I'd fall just short of it. So it was about 14 or 15 years ago that I wrote this letter, co-signed by Senator Richard Lugar, to President Barack Obama. When he was in the Senate, sat over here, he was a co-sponsor of the DREAM Act. So I knew that I had a pretty good audience sending him this letter. I asked him if there's anything as President of the United States of America he could do to protect these young people from being deported. It took a while, took months. There were some fierce negotiations even within his administration. But 14 years ago today, he came up with the DACA program. The DACA program is fairly simple and straightforward. If you want to stay in the United States and legally work, also pay your taxes, if you want to make sure that you're not going to be deported, you come to the government every 2 years and you pay a filing fee of $600. They process you and do an extensive criminal background check. If you pass that check, you can work here for 2 years and then do it all over again. If something happens in the intervening 2 years where you've broken the law with a serious crime, you're gone. Just that simple. No more DACA protection, nothing. So how many young people stepped up? I was surprised. I expected some, but I didn't expect the overwhelming turnout. It was in August of that year that we held a meeting at Navy Pier in Chicago. Congressman Luis Gutierrez and I thought, well, we'll bring in some volunteer immigration attorneys, we'll bring in the notary publics that may be needed, and we'll let these young people, by and large young people, sign up for the DACA program. We were expecting about 500. 20,000 came. 20,000. They stood in line starting at midnight and snaked around the Navy Pier, parents bringing their kids in to finally have a chance to have peace of mind that their son or daughter had a future in the United States. How many altogether across the nation signed up? 835,000. 835,000. They came forward, they received the protection of DACA. And now, who are they? Where are they? They're teaching your kids in the classroom at school. They're the nurses that answered the buzzer when your spouse was in the hospital. They're engineers, small business owners, caregivers. They're taking care of your mom and dad in that nursing home tonight. DACA. These young people grew up in America alongside our own kids. This is the only place they ever called home. DACA recipients with the peace of mind that they go to work have started families, with 37% having U.S. citizen children. 935,000 U.S. citizens live with DACA holders. This program, created because of a letter that Senator Lugar and I sent to President Obama, has reached out and touched the lives of millions of young Americans. DACA recipients pay their taxes. They contribute nearly $16 billion a year to the U.S. economy. Let me highlight the story of one of these DACA recipients so that you come to know at least one person who's benefited from DACA. I've come to the floor of the Senate many times to tell these stories of dreamers. This is number 152. Her name is Diana Perez. She was born in Mexico City. Diana was brought to this country when she was 7 years old. She grew up in one of the best cities in the world as far as I'm concerned, a city which has a pretty good baseball team too. That city, of course, is Chicago, my home state of Illinois. Two pretty good baseball teams, I better be careful. Before Diana obtained DACA, her academic advisor laid out the barriers she'd face, questioning how she would support herself and how she'd be able to afford her education. For young people like Diana, this is a hill to climb and a responsibility that they have to face that many kids don't ever face. She was a determined person. She wasn't going to let anybody discourage her from her goals in life. She cleaned houses. She served coffee to pay her tuition and cover the cost of books. She was so passionate about her education and it being the key to her success, she confronted every barrier head on. Ultimately, Diana graduated with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in media and communications from Northeastern Illinois University. She's a proud Golden Eagle of that great school. Her experiences in college and graduate school inspired her to fight for the rights of others and combat discrimination. Diana now serves as a community engagement director for the City of Chicago's Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights, which is chaired by Alderperson Andre Vasquez of the 40th Ward. Since joining the committee, Diana has collaborated with community partners, nonprofits, and government officials, and she's advocated on behalf of the people of Chicago. I met Diana here in the Capitol in April. She and her colleagues with the Chicago Latino Caucus Foundation traveled to Washington, D.C. Diana explained to me that DACA changed her life. It provided her with the opportunity to pursue the career that she's so passionate about. Her goal is to work in the federal government someday, and wouldn't we all be lucky to have her representing us? Despite multiple court challenges, DACA still survives, and the Trump administration is under court order to resume processing DACA renewals and work permit applications. When they couldn't just stop the program, and they tried in the president's first term, they tried to find some way to slow it down and were challenged in court. They lost in court. The judge ordered them proceed with DACA as written, but they've refused to do so. We know that President Trump attempted to eliminate DACA in his first term. Now his administration is stripping away many of the dreamers of their lawful presence and deporting them from the country they grew up in. How does that work? They show up to renew their DACA status, protecting them from deportation and allowing them to work and pay taxes. And someone's waiting at the front door and says, before you sign up, we're going to detain you, question you, and deport you. That's a fact. The data tells the story. In Illinois alone, my office is working on 92 DACA constituent cases as of May of this year. This month, that number has climbed to 145, 50% increase. The Trump administration is gaming the system, not giving people like Diana the opportunity that they're entitled to show up, pay their fee, go through a background check, and have 2 more years of protection. The slow walking of renewals has resulted in many dreamers, individuals who are following every rule, to lose their DACA protection, lose their jobs, and risk deportation through no fault of their own. Additionally, the Justice Department's Board of Immigration Appeals, which has been totally politicized by this administration, recently issued a controversial decision holding that DACA would no longer necessarily protect dreamers from deportation. When President Obama created DACA 14 years ago, some dreamers and their families expressed concern. I heard them. I saw them at the Navy Pier. Why would we possibly give all our personal information about our family to protect our daughter under DACA if that information can be used against our family in later years and deport people in our family? Why should we cooperate? Why should we come out of the shadows? Well, many of us said to them, just follow the law. The law is established by this executive order. Do what you're supposed to do. Pay your $600 fee every 2 years. Go through your criminal background check. Make sure you show up in time to renew your DACA protection. Do those things and you'll be following the law. You'll be fine. We were wrong. The information which these families turned over for DACA applications is now being used to seek them out, detain them, arrest them, and deport them. What a heartbreak. After years of waiting, I think it's long overdue for Congress to honor the dreamers' patience and persistence, act on our own promises, and provide them with a pathway to citizenship. Only Congress can give dreamers the stability they crave and deserve. The time to pass the DREAM Act is now. To the dreamers watching, I say, I'm not going to give up on you. Don't give up on me and don't give up on this Congress. We can do the right thing. I'm going to continue to fight for the dreamers and continue to fight for DACA. In the face of this administration's actions, Congress must finally act to protect these young people who know no other home than here. This is a matter of simple American fairness and justice. If you could meet Diana or the thousands of others who are taking advantage of DACA to give back to this country, you can understand why this is the right thing to do. I don't believe that we should knowingly accept any dangerous person who wants to come into this country, nor should we allow any dangerous person to continue to stay in this country if they've committed a serious crime and are threatening. They're gone. But for those who were brought here as kids, as children, who became part of America because they fell in love with this country like we all do, and just want a chance to be part of its future, this is not too much to ask. You can be tough on border enforcement. You can be tough on crimes committed by those who are not here legally. I'll join in that effort. But in the meantime, have a heart for those who are really trying their best to make a life in America and make this country a better place. The DACA recipients are just those people. They deserve our help. Mr. President, I yield the floor.